I'm Erik Dyke. I've been a long-term member at UUFR since 1978. I grew up UU, so if anything, that makes me one of the few. Anyhow, I have been part of the music program ever since I joined, and it's changed a lot, and I'm willing to talk to you about so many of the changes that we've seen over the years. I'm a double bass player professionally, and I played in the trio and along with any number of performances at the fellowship for my entire experience here in Raleigh, and it's been a lot of fun.
So tell me about the significant musical milestones at UUFR over the decades you've been here.
Okay, good question. In 1978 and 79, when I was first starting here, it was a much smaller organization, and Loretta Mershon, who still is alive and well here in Raleigh, was our choir director. We had no music director, but Loretta prepared all the music. She played the piano and the auto harp and sang and directed the choir. She was not alone. Erica Fairchild and Renata Thompson were both active in the fellowship at that time, and they both had daughters and friends who played musical instruments. Erica had a daughter who played the cello and a daughter that played the viola, and they would occasionally play for services. So we had guest artists playing at our services, mostly in the classical realm. That was the late 1970s, and in the 1980s we had a different sort of thing happening. Let me look at my notes for a second.
Absolutely.
We had several different people involved in music during the 1980s. We had a lovely woman named Hayun Bennett, who was a harpist. She was our music director for a while. She played the harp, she conducted the choir, she played the piano. Linda Hamburger, one of our members, was very active in the music program at that time, and she was a singer. And into the 1980s, we had a movement at the fellowship called the Women's Movement, let's call it. Women's Spirituality, Earth-Centered Spirituality, which was led by a couple of our leaders. Gretchen Lehman and Nancy Kevin were our leaders at that time, in teaching a course called Cakes for the Queen of Heaven. It was a very interesting course that appealed to lots of women, and along with the women's curriculum, we were learning ancient chanting, songs from the very early times, and we would have these chants, C-H-A-N-T-S, chants, that we would sing in our services. We would cast the circle before the service started with the east, the west, the north, and the south, and it was an earth-centered sort of direction we were going in during the 1980s. Then into the 1990s, we had Bill Yoakum. We hired our first full-time music director who was a well-trained choral director and pianist. Linda Hamburger and I were the music committee at the time. We interviewed him, and he was our clear pick, Bill Yoakum. He played the piano beautifully and conducted the choir, and when asked, "What is the purpose for having a choir?" his answer was, "Well, to sing the Handel Messiah." Well, we never sang the Handel Messiah here, but that was his quick and easy answer. Bill was a very skilled music director, and he was here with us for about 10 years. Then, after Bill left, Yuri Yamamoto joined us for about 20 years. She was here a long time. She left a career in science and was pursuing her passion in music. She played the piano and directed the choir. But she also brought to us a lot of interesting things. She brought to us pianists and guest pianists, world music, that'd be music from the African tradition and other, taiko drumming or taiku drumming, the Chinese harp, and other. Yuri was a gifted musician full of vision, and our music program was expanded. She was very, very worldly and interested in going different directions, and she lasted here about 20 years. After Yuri, we hired Scott McKenzie. Scott was another very interesting, highly skilled, well-trained pianist and choir director. Came from a musical family. His father was a band director. He went to Indiana University, very skilled music director, and had a career playing on board ships. So that was his thing. He played shipboard entertaining music. So when he came to us, he was an entertainer. He played lots of jazz and pop tunes, brought a huge number of guest artists with him to our services, played the saxophone, the guitar, we had rock music, we had all sorts of other things that we didn't hear up until that point, thanks to Scott McKenzie. After Scott, now we've got a new music director, Jean Marie Whaley, who is taking us yet in many more new directions, which we'll soon find out.
So you've been involved in musical fundraisers over the years at UUFR. Tell me about those.
In or around 1985, 1986, we had a budget shortfall. I was on the board of directors at that time. I said, well, I think I have an idea. Why don't we do a musical program where we sell tickets, feature musicians from the North Carolina Symphony, serve up all kinds of delicious treats, and call it a gala concert fundraiser. So we did that, and it was such a hit. We did it year after year for some 30 years. It became more than a fundraiser, it became actually a budget line item. So it was something that had come from an idea that I had experienced at a music festival where you bring a variety of different players and singers, piano and everything like that, serve up food, and we raised thousands of dollars. I think over the course of 20 or 30 years, we easily raised $30,000. Anyhow, that was a lot of fun. I was the MC host for that. I got to introduce my friends, and many of them were people that I worked with at the symphony orchestra or knew from different aspects from performing with singers and that sort of thing, pianists around town. Well, after that, we decided to expand that idea from the gala concert featuring mostly classical to another event we called the Bucks and Broadway Party. It was a party show featuring Broadway hits. And that was a thank you to the giving to the fellowship from the donors. So at the end of our fund drive, which usually happened in the fall at the time, we'd have the Bucks and Broadway show, party, once again with food and drink and that sort of thing. Very well attended to the point where we had to sell tickets. No, we gave away the tickets. And then we doubled it up. We had to do 2 nights in a row. So this went on for maybe 10 or 12 or 15 years. And that was the Bucks and Broadway fundraiser. And I'm glad to say that it was a huge hit. We raised lots of, no, it was the thank you part is what I mean to say. We had a lot of fun with it. People looked forward to it as a social event. It was a musical event. It was one of the highlights of the season, for me at least. So those were the fundraiser events.
And why aren't there musical fundraisers today?
Well, because of the shutdown with COVID, a lot of things just kind of came to a halt. And it does now require to restart. We simply haven't restarted some of those. We have more guidelines now. Now you have to have more of an organization behind you to do a fundraiser. I couldn't just say, well, I want to do a fundraiser. Now you have to have a whole support group. I'm not sure, at least 2 or 3 people working with you. We can do it again.
So what's your analysis of UUFR's music scene today?
I can speak mostly to the adult classical type of music scene that we have. I've not been involved with the Folky Friday group, which meets regularly, and they have a lot of fun. The choir has never sounded better. Our gifted pianists are doing a wonderful job with prelude, service music, postlude music, and weddings and funerals. I participated in a few of those. Our choir is bigger than ever, complete with men's voices, sound much better than ever before. How did we get to this point? Well, many of the choir members have been there for a long time, and during the Yuri Yamamoto years would participate in Choir Fest or Choral Fest or something like that. And they would go to either Durham or Winston-Salem and that sort of thing. So our choir has been pretty steady for the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years and growing. I think our new music director, Jean Marie, will take us into many new directions. I think that our jazz trio featuring Billy Lyle, Bill McMillan, and others is a really fun group when we have alternate services like that, when they play the jazz repertoire. I think that there's opportunity for high school kids to get more involved, but we haven't seen enough of that yet. So we need to encourage some of our younger folks to participate in our services. We still have people from the North Carolina Symphony coming through.
So you play double bass for the NC Symphony. At UUFR, you're playing in sometimes rock songs or pop songs, some jazz. How is playing with the symphony different than playing at UUFR?
Well, playing in the symphony orchestra requires a lot of rehearsal time, usually 2 or 3 rehearsals, and mostly reading the music. But to play in the trio or to play the pop songs, most of that is played by ear. Now, admittedly, I like to play along with the pianist and look over his shoulder at the music, but it's a different thing for me. I enjoy playing pop music because I can play by ear. I get to play songs that I mostly know and love, and I think that there's more room for those pop songs in our services too. I think that we have some very talented players, piano and other. We have drummers, we have guitars. I hope that we'll have more and more of that now that we've gone to 2 services.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the musical scene at UUFR?
Yes, I do want to talk about that. In the 1970s, we had a few pianos. We had a couple of spinet pianos, but they were never anything that anybody wanted to listen to. But in the 1980s, a friend of mine, Scott Jones, was working for Steinway. Well, he was about to go to Steinway, and we found a Steinway upright piano in a practice room at Duke. So we bought that Steinway upright, and it brought us to a new level as far as our instruments go. That piano still exists in Founders Hall, and it sounds surprisingly good for an old, beat-up piano that's been around for 100 years. Soon after that, somehow or other, we acquired a Baldwin Grand. Now, that Baldwin Grand was also somewhat at the end of its life, but it was a grand piano, and we could bring in guest artists, and we could put on a show where the pianists sounded great. They could play Chopin and Rachmaninoff and this sort of thing on a grand piano, and we were really lucky to have that Baldwin, but things got better. Around 1990, one of our lead members, Abby Majeska, and I went to the Steinway dealership, and we found another Steinway piano for sale, a grand. Now, before I tell you about that piano, I must say that the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, was encouraging us to do a practice fundraiser because we were about to build our new building, what we now call Fellowship Hall. So we did a practice fundraiser. We decided to buy a piano, and it was in the $25,000 price range, so it wasn't a huge expense, but it required people making a pledge and that sort of thing. So we found the piano, and we got the permission from the board of directors, and we had a grand piano effort. We bought the piano, and we had it installed. We brought it to us, and it was like a new world for us to having such a wonderful instrument now. That we've had that instrument for about 25 or more years, and it keeps on getting better. Now, many people contributed to that fundraiser event for the grand piano through the memorial committees, and we always had a piano fund. And it's still open as far as I know. If people would like to donate to that sort of thing, we're always interested in promoting our musical instruments. And it requires some maintenance and tuning, that sort of thing. But we got lucky. We have one of the finest pianists in town. And our pianists who come and visit us are always amazed and always happy to play on our instrument. Well, we also have more than that. Somebody donated an organ. We've got drum sets. We've got the electric bass guitar. We have a ukulele band. And for anybody who's interested in learning a really fun instrument, ukulele is a fun and easy instrument. It's easy to carry around, and it's easy to learn how to play and sing with. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in the ukulele band to look for us. We meet pretty regularly. During the 1990s, one of our members, Bob Chapman, appeared and brought with him a wide range of opera singers. He was friends with Christine Weidinger, who had an opera program going on here in the Triangle. So we had some opera events here, believe it or not. We had fine, fine singing. One of our long-term members, Joe Ferguson, promoted an evening, 3-concert evening series featuring jazz bands. We've had the Gay Men's Choir. We've had other groups that play in our sanctuary and have had a wonderful time entertaining people in the community. We've often talked about maybe putting on a community series of some kind. So anyhow, we've gone off in some different directions. We've had the opera, we've had the jazz, we've had choral directors, and we're always looking for more motivated people that could help us get into one area or another. We have a lot of ambitious people. People are encouraged to step up and sing out.